Welcome into the GigEm247 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Perroni, a post-National Signing Day edition of the podcast. But we had some big news on Thursday morning on the team side, actually. Ainias Smith announces that he will be returning for another year in Aggieland. Huge news for A&M, especially in a wide receiver room that they added Tyron Smith but haven't been able to add anybody else out of the portal. Brian, how's everything going, and what are kind of your reactions to the news?
Oh, it's good, man. After an exhausting signing day yesterday, as is always that first Wednesday, and it's crazy. I mean, the first year Jimbo was here, A&M had 9 players announced on signing day, and this year they were completely done, in December. So yeah, that was a bit nuts. But yeah, Ainias Smith, man, he Moose Muhammad came on, and Moose and Evan Stewart are the 1-2 threats, but it doesn't hurt to have a veteran in there. And receivers rotate a ton. Ainias brings a different skill set too. He can line up a running back like he did, I guess, his freshman year and a little bit of sophomore year. So he can line up a running back. He could really do a lot of things, and he's a great presence in the locker room. So, I could see why, A&M pushed to have him back, or, get him back, and why, I think, we saw a lot of Adidas in that video. So it seems like Adidas is pretty excited to have him back, repping one of their brands. So yeah, it's big news for A&M for sure.
No doubt, kind of a group effort on all fronts. Kind of some sweet aspects to that video as well, and kind of like the first half of the video as well, the working out, and I thought it was really well done overall. I completely agree with you. You look at now what A&M has returning. Not only do you bring back a veteran presence, which I think certainly bodes well for that room, you bring back your top 3 receivers. And, Evan Stewart last year had 649 yards on 53 receptions. Moose Muhammad has 610 yards on 38 receptions. And Ainias Smith in just 4 games had 291 yards and 15 receptions. And you did, I think, see when he got hurt in that Arkansas game on a really unfortunate play, they missed him the rest of the year, and they missed his presence. They missed, just a reliable third down threat that could find a way to get open, could find the holes. That's what experience brings you. And I think it certainly gives a boost to that room, and it makes you feel a little bit better about maybe not having to rely on a young guy. You've got Micah Tease, you've got Raymond Cottrell, you've got Noah Thomas and Tyron Smith there as well to kind of give you a good foundation for that room. But this team's going to go where Ainias Smith, Moose Muhammad, and Evan Stewart kind of take them.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure. I mean, you do have, some other guys in there, but yeah, it's going to be, those 3 with the experience coming back. And then, you throw some of those newcomers, Tyron Smith. I mean, it's going to be fun to see Micah Tease in the slot as well. And, Raymond Cottrell and some other guys, some current guys getting a little bit more time. So, but yeah, I mean, that room needs the depth. I mean, it's what we talked about all along. Like, it was a position they needed in, one of the big ones in the transfer portal. So, I mean, if you just count this as almost like a transfer coming in, because, it wasn't guaranteed. At one point he was leaning towards the NFL, now he's coming back. So, if you sort of look at it as a transfer, I mean, it's a big get. It does. I mean, A&M is not anywhere close to that 85 number, but he was able to redshirt this past year. So he's not a super senior yet. So it does count towards the 85. But if he was a super senior, then that's a totally free player. So
yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, he only played 4 games, I believe. So
yeah, he got hurt in that Arkansas game, so only 4 games. And you're right, they've got room under the 85 limit, as we've kind of talked about on the board at length a little bit. And for me, I know one of the things people kind of mentioned when reacting to this news was, well, Moose Muhammad started to emerge when Ainias Smith got hurt. And for me, I think you're going to probably see a lot more of Moose Muhammad and Ainias Smith on the field together. I think with Bobby Petrino in the fold now, you're going to see them look to get their best players on the field, and you're going to look to see them have all 3 guys in some way, shape, or form. You mentioned you rotate a lot. that's absolutely true as well. So the guys like Noah Thomas are going to be in there. They're not going to be in all three of them at the same time every single time. Gives you an opportunity to rotate, gives you a chance to have another veteran out on the field if a guy like Moose Muhammad is out, if a guy like Evan Stewart is out. You've got other guys that can kind of step up. You talk about that that Auburn game, for example. Evan Stewart, I believe that was the game he gets banged up. Moose Muhammad is obviously out with the sleeve issue, and now suddenly you have nothing to really go to in the passing game. And so it gives you another weapon. It gives you another option. It's a long season. I don't think A&M's in a position that they have to worry about, spreading out snaps and all those sorts of things. I think you can get all these guys into the mix, and frankly, the deeper you can have that room and the depth you can have, the better, because they're going to need all of them.
Oh, for sure. And without it, there's no proven running back or running back with experience coming back. So, and you do have a quarterback with experience. You got a lot of receivers. So, and a new offense. So I imagine there's going to be more throwing the ball too, and some vertical throwing the ball, which, I know fans will be excited to see after we haven't really seen that the last couple of years, but, get the ball downfield, and he'll be able to do that.
No doubt. And switching gears, you mentioned the National Signing Day and everything that kind of took place there on Wednesday. Very quiet day, as we talked about. A&M didn't have anybody added to the class. Had kind of done some work in early January. Raymond Cottrell is obviously a guy that joined the class and was able to get in time to enroll for the semester. Micah T is another guy that was able to enroll early that A&M flipped late during the early signing period. What do you make of? Were you surprised at all that A&M didn't pursue more guys this month? There's a lot of guys now seem to make their decision early, and there's just not a lot of players that really go to the National Signing Day time unsigned.
Yeah, it's even last year. When A&M had that class, the guys that were late were like Shamar, Stewart, and I don't remember who else, but it was like 5-star types, and
Jacoby
we saw
Matthews,
that.
I believe, might have.
Yeah, we saw that this week with Jaden Rashada come in to Arizona State, Nicholas Harbor to South Carolina. Some of those 5-star types were still out there, but most guys were signed. So, if you look at it, A&M doesn't have the numbers you would ideally like in a class, but looking at it, there aren't any positions that since they got the 2 receivers, there were no receivers the day before the early signing day, and they ended up with 2. But it's not any positions they definitively needed. Another offensive tackle would have been great, but every school in the country was looking for offensive tackles. So, that was sort of an uphill battle. But I thought, A&M loves speed. I thought they'd find 1 or 2 guys that they were going to go after late, bring in. But, there were no official visits in January. It was just it was weird. This is completely new territory for us.
No doubt. People are kind of asking in the nights leading up to National Signing Day, still nobody that they're pursuing. Yeah. And it's true. Marquise Montgomery is a guy that committed to Cal early Wednesday morning. A&M offered him, but really after the offer didn't really make that much of a push for him. And, I saw a stat that Andrew Ivins mentioned, and I mentioned it when I was kind of running through the class, that only 5% of the top 247 or blue chip prospects were basically left unsigned by the time
So that's 12 or 13 out of the top 247. So it's totally different game now.
And you look at a guy like Nicholas Harbor. A&M wasn't really in on him. He obviously commits to South Carolina on Wednesday. Big get for them, obviously. Roderick Pleasant, another guy that they weren't really in on. That was kind of a battle between USC and Oregon. So when you really kind of narrow the field down, there really wasn't a lot of elite names or impact names that are in there. And it does bring the question now. A&M still has several spots to use before under the 85-man limit. Any cause concern there? I know there's a lot of concern on the board when it comes to depth and when it comes to those sorts of things. Is that something you worry about as much? Or?
No. We've looked at the individual positions on past episodes here. There are some, it's like, oh, it's sort of scary thin, but no. A&M will get to the 85. I literally, I've been doing this job now 17, 18 years. I've never actually paid attention to the 85 because I know there's always going to be attrition one way, and somehow, scholarships, and with the portal also being, portal still being open to guys who are in it, but then also being open after spring ball, you can go, maybe go grab a guy or two if you really need somebody in a certain position. So I don't think it's a concern. I mean, A&M has guys coming back at every position, and you would hope that injuries don't hit the team next year like they did this past season, because then you would need just warm bodies out there. But right now A&M doesn't need bodies. They don't need to take a guy just to have a guy.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what Jimbo Fisher's message was. He never really said during the early signing period that A&M was going to get to 85. I think somebody asked him if he felt a need to get there, and he said, "We'll sign any players that we feel like we need to get to a national championship level, or anybody that can help us get to a national championship." To me, that's not saying we're going to end up at 85, and that doesn't mean we're just going to hand out, from a coaching perspective, that doesn't mean A&M is just going to hand out 9 scholarships to walk-ons and call it a day because they didn't feel like filling up the rest. I don't think that's the way they're looking at it. But are there areas that they could probably still add? Yes, I think so. I think they could, as we talked about on previous podcasts. I think a cornerback wouldn't hurt if they could find one more. If Ainias Smith coming back at receiver makes you feel a lot better about that room. Obviously, got to see what happens with Jalen Preston and get a definitive answer there. But I think I think they do feel comfortable with where the roster stands, and they do feel like they have a lot of guys returning. There's obviously guys you could add from a depth standpoint, but I do feel like they have their starters, and now it's just a matter of staying healthy. They've got to stay healthy, otherwise the season's going to be a wash anyway.
Yeah.
So that's got to be the key focus this offseason, and we'll see if they're able to do it. And obviously keep guys on the field away from being suspended and everything else that went wrong last season. But, going to be fascinating, and spring ball's right around the corner. We kind of heard this week that the spring game will be April 15th, I believe.
So Parents' weekend every year. So I think we knew that was going to happen. So, so spring ball just after spring break, into March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're about a month away from really getting into that, and we'll have a lot more coming to kind of get you ready for that. But definitely some good news to kind of close out this week with Ainias Smith coming back, and I think, again, just to close things out, I think gives you a big lift to this room, to that room, gives you a veteran presence, and A&M will be much better for it.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to everybody for joining us for this edition of the podcast, and we'll be back next week to continue kind of looking ahead to spring practice, discuss the latest on the recruiting trail. Things never stop on that front as the focus now turns towards the 2024 class. And be sure to give us a like and share on YouTube if you're following along there, or a 5-star review if you're listening to this on the Apple or Spotify platforms. And so until then, have a great week, and we'll see you guys soon.